Probate is really full of red tape because there's so many rules to follow. The court wants to make sure that everything is supervised, and whether it's a living probate or a probate for someone who's passed away. As you know, in California, if there's no will, then intestate succession takes over. If there is a will, then it's a regular probate. How long does probate take? Average 2 to 4 years. The longest probate in California was 75 years. I mean, imagine that. The beneficiaries have probably lived and died and never got their money. And that's true. It only takes one person to contest the will or cause a problem or file a lawsuit, and the whole process gets extended. We have probates that have been going on for 6, 7 years. And because the estate's still being liquidated, the court is in control. Assets are frozen during this process. And frankly, no one's very happy. It's also expensive. Probate fees average 6 to 8% of the gross estate. Remember, not the net estate. Where does that all go? Where do you think that goes? 2 to 4% goes to the executor. 2 to 4% goes to the lawyer. You have the court costs. You have a probate referee that gets about $10,000 as a personal fee. You have bonds. You have commissions. You have appraisal fees. You have publication costs. Every probate has to be published in the newspaper to give everyone legal notice. So all those fees added up together add up to about 6 to 8%. They could be much higher, but that would be an average of a probate that had no problem. So if you look at an estate that's, let's just say, $500,000, probate fees going to all those different people, the executor, the attorneys, the court, going to be about $40,000, which means that the beneficiaries are not going to get what they could have gotten if there was a better estate plan. And sometimes to pay all these fees, very often there isn't a lot of cash just sitting around. Most of the money and most of the wealth for many of us is in our home or the rental property or a business. But the fees have to be paid in cash. And so very often, in order to complete the probate process, houses have to be sold. The court orders a liquidation so that all the fees can be paid. And it's just kind of problematic to have to do that, especially when you want a house to maybe stay in the family for a while. Probate is public. We all listen to these probate cases. Anna Nicole Smith, Michael Jackson, because they're all public. Now there are many more cases we don't hear about, but those are the famous probates that we hear about. They're easy to contest. I had a widow that came to me, and her husband had passed away. They had one little boy, and the gentleman was a very interesting guy. He was an architect for Ralph Lauren, designed some of their stores, and he turned into a car collector. He had this amazing car collection. And he had a whole building full of cars. And the mechanic, a young man about 22, 23 years old, who would clean the cars and clean the engines and keep the dust off, came to court and said, you know what? John, the decedent, promised to give me all the cars if I would take care of them. So here I am with my lawyer. I'm supposed to get the car collection. Now keep in mind, one of these cars was a 1962 Ferrari. We ended up selling it for $3.8 million to a buyer from London who came over and paid cash for it. So the car collection was very valuable. This wasn't just my old Chevy and my old Ford. It was a really nice car collection. And, you know, we had to litigate with this young man because he saw dollar signs, and he found a lawyer that saw more dollar signs and encouraged the process. In the end, the young man, unfortunately, did not have anything written. There was no contract, there was no promise. He'd been well paid, and the whole thing was just an attempt to take money from the widow and the young child. And we won the case, we got rid of him, but it cost money, it took time. And it was easy for him to contest. That's what probate's there for. Let everyone that wants a piece of the pie try to get a piece of the pie. Sometimes they say, where there's a will, there's a relative. That's very true. Relatives that you haven't talked to in years, relatives that don't even come to the funeral, will show up for the probate.